the beautiful city of Hamilton, and not as nice as Paris, but nice in and of itself, and had a chance to go and talk a little bit about the work that I'm involved in Malawi. And so, as great as it is to always go and talk to other places about what is happening in Malawi, it's always great to come back. It's always great to be with faces that I know and to see, what God is doing in the midst of this community as well. And so if you haven't been with us for a couple of weeks, or perhaps this morning is your very first time here, again, welcome. It is great to have you with us. We have been working through a series called Good Habits. And we know that in life, we have habits that we do, good ones and bad ones, and they all impact our quality of life, our quality of relationships, just how we live life. And so we have been asking the question of what are some of the good habits that we need to develop in our life in order to grow deeper in our faith in Jesus. Because for us as a church, our focus is all about leading people to Jesus, that we want to see people make that initial commitment to say, yes, I want you as a part of my life. But then not to simply stop there, to then say, okay, I want to grow in my commitment. I want to grow in my faith as well. And then eventually we get to a place of saying, okay, this is not just about me and Jesus. This is about going with him and about being engaged in life and in ministry and in our community and having our faith make a difference in the day-to-day. And so this is a series that I believe can slot into all three places, to make a commitment, to grow, and to go as we look at how do we make Jesus a reality in all of life? Maybe you've grown up and understood that, if you want to experience God, then you got to go to a church on a Sunday morning, and that is the place, that is the box we put him in. But we can't put God in boxes, right? Because he wants to be experienced in all of life. And so perhaps there's an opportunity for us to say, I never really thought of it this way. But then also to grow in our faith. There are ways, there are experiences, there's a rhythm of life that God wants to be a part of. That we don't want to just kind of make Jesus an accessory, right? That we just kind of put on occasion and then we take off and we really live life however we want. We want to begin to see how do we experience the goodness and the riches of God in all of life. And so this morning we're going to land in a place that I'm pretty sure we can all relate to. Whether you are old, whether you are young, whether you are retired, whether you're working, whether you have little children, older children, no children. How many of you this week, can raise your hand or not, just nod your head, you can feel it within, but how many of you felt like you had a really busy week this week? Yeah, we start to see the hands go up. How many of you heard or you said it at least once this week, I am so busy? I am so busy, right? It just kind of comes out of our mouth. It comes in as a reality. And we're living at a pace that oftentimes we can't seem to catch up to. We have so many things that are going on in life, whether it's family, whether it's work, whether it's activities, whether it's children, whether it's community, whether it's serving, whether it's going to church. And life gets so busy. And I don't know about you, but you live with a bit of a tension. And the tension is outwardly, we seem to applaud busyness, don't we? Right? It's almost as if someone comes to you, it's almost as if you have to tell someone, I am so busy. There's so many things going on, and we like to put it as a badge of honor, right? No one really likes to say, hey, how's your week? Well, I'm not busy at all. I just kind of sit around and do nothing. It's like, no, that may be the reality, but you don't say that publicly, right? You want to let people know just how busy you are because we seem to equate busyness with effectiveness. That the busier you are, the more effective you are, and then maybe the more important you are. And so we hold up busyness as a badge of honor, and that's the outward tension because inwardly we know it's not how we want to live. It's not really how we want to live because we know that busyness comes at a cost. We know that busyness can lead to stress and to worry, to the wonder of just how can I get everything done? I have so much going on. Busyness can lead to us not taking proper care of ourselves, right? Do you notice how we live in a society that doesn't always market good food? doesn't always market quality food, it markets fast food, right? We will get you in and out as quickly as possible. The CEO of Domino's Pizza years ago said, we don't sell pizza, we sell efficiency, right? 30 minutes or it's free. Right? And I remember as a kid, you'd order pizza, and in the back of your mind, I'm thinking, I would rather have an uncooked pizza show up within 30 minutes and have to wait 35, 40 minutes, right? You see it in the midst of life. Busyness is taking things from us. It impacts our relationships, right? Anyone suffering from busyness often suffers from what I would refer to as sunset syndrome. Right? Life has been so busy that as soon as the sun goes down, it's like, oh my gosh, I just need to relax and settle down, right? You're just overwhelmed, and it impacts the quality of life. It impacts relationships. And have you ever considered that busyness might be one of the greatest detriments to us growing in our faith? I'm convinced that for a lot of people, they don't experience the abundance of Jesus, not because they stop believing, but because we get distracted. We begin to engage in so many other things that our attention is pulled away from God. You know, one of my favorite lines of Jesus comes in John 10, where he says, I have come so that you can have the abundant life. You can have a life worth living. And I'm pretty sure my interpretation that Jesus didn't mean, okay, so now we're going to take everything else you've been doing and we're going to pack a whole lot of God in church right in on top of that, right? We're just going to, it's like packing a suitcase, right? You know you want to get a little bit more in, you know you want to take a little bit more, and so you pack and you stuff and you sit and you zip and you go at it. And too often that's how we deal with life. How much more can I pack in? How much more can I make a reality for me? And so this morning, we want to ask the question. We want to jump into the place of saying, okay, where does my faith intersect the busyness of life? How does this begin to become a reality for me? Does Jesus have anything to say in the midst of that? Or is it just like, you know what? Figure it out. Become a better time manager, right? Like surely we don't come to church to learn about better time management, right? 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 Okay, good. All right, we're here for the right reasons, right? But how does faith live out into everything that we do? And so I want to turn to a passage, the one we just read, which are the words of Mark, first century follower of Jesus. And Mark is the shortest gospel, so the biographies. You have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And Mark is the first one that was written, and it goes at a fairly quick pace. 39 times you find the word immediately, right? So it's like Mark is telling something, and then immediately, it's like the excited child who comes home from a great day at school, and they just can't get everything out of their mouth at once. And so it's onto this and onto that and onto that, and you're just like, whoa, what's going on? But Mark gives us a great snapshot in 16 chapters in terms of the life and the ministry of Jesus. And we're just going to jump into 2 days. And so if you have a Bible, if you want to swipe there on your phone or your tablet, or you want to go old school and grab one of the Bibles in front of you, we're going to start in Mark chapter 1, verse 29. And just as a quick recap, there's a lot going on in Jesus' day. It can be easily described that Jesus was busy. He was busy, right? His day starts by him teaching in the Sabbath. Now, the Sabbath would be the equivalent of us coming to church. Right? And so Jesus was up front. He would have been teaching. He would have been engaging in conversations. He probably wouldn't have run out of the place right at the end. He would have had conversations. And so it started with a group of people. And then after that, Peter's like, hey, I have an idea. Let's go see my mother-in-law because she is really sick. And if you want to get in good with your mother-in-law, bring someone who can heal her. Right? That's a good move. Peter, well done. Guys, take notes, right? Right, and so he goes and he heals and he hangs out with the in-laws and has the afternoon together. And so he's taught at the synagogue. He's hung out with family. And now as he's about to leave, people start gathering at the door. Right? Jesus can't leave. All the sick, all the people who are possessed by evil spirits, they're showing up at the door. They're wanting some of Jesus as well. And we're told that Jesus healed many of those that were sick. Many. He cast out many of the evil spirits, which is amazing, but also tells us that he didn't heal everybody. End of the day, Jesus goes to bed. Following day, he gets up really early while it's still dark. And he goes to a quiet place to pray. Have you ever had those moments where you have a real busy day, life has just gone crazy, and you just need a moment, and then suddenly someone shows up and interrupts you, right? And you're like, really? I can't even get away from the crowds? That's what happened to Jesus. He deliberately went away from the crowds, went away from his people. And then his disciples show up, and they're like, Jesus, we have been looking all over for you. Everybody is looking for you. No kidding. When you can heal people, people want a piece of your time. And so like basically saying, Jesus, let's ramp it up. Let's keep doing what you were just doing. Let's go. Let's go. And Jesus is like, no, we're moving on. But really? But Jesus, there's people here who need you, who want to be healed, who want to be taught, who need you. No, we're moving on. And Jesus says, I need to go to other towns and to preach and to minister to them as well. And so we're told that Jesus goes to other towns, to other synagogues, heals other people. But I love it. On the way, guess what happens again to Jesus? He's got to go to other towns, other synagogues. Someone interrupts him. This time a man with leprosy. And in the ancient world, leprosy was this debilitating skin disease, right? Terrible situation. And I love the details of Mark. Because Mark just didn't say, yep, okay, Jesus healed him and moved on. What was the reaction of Jesus when he was interrupted? If I'm being honest, it's not the reaction I have when I'm interrupted. He had compassion. I'm not going to ask people to raise their hands here, but is your typical response when you're interrupted compassion? I don't know. But Jesus had compassion upon the man. And then we're told that the day concluded with basically people continuing to seek him out. And so what does Jesus do? He withdraws again to a quiet place, to a lonely place, we're told, to get away from the crowds. So what does this teach us? Looks like Jesus was very busy. Looks like there was an incredible amount of things going on in Jesus' life. And so I don't think it's as simple as just saying, start cutting things out of your life. It may be. But rather, how do you live in the midst of busyness? And I think what is significant about Jesus is that although he was busy, he was never hurried. Now, you may be thinking, okay, Joel, you're splitting hairs on this one. Right? It's okay to be busy, but it's not okay to be hurried. This is my definition. Busyness is the outward activity, the things that we're engaged in. Hurried is the inner perspective or reality. It's how we live. It's the perspective that we gain in order to respond to the requests and the tasks that we often experience in life. It's amazing when you start to go through the rest of the Gospel of Mark. And there's 8 other times, 9 including this one, where Mark tells us, remember, Mark is wanting to get things told quickly. But 9 times in the Gospel of Mark, he tells us a little phrase that Jesus then withdrew, or Jesus then went on to a quiet place. And so wanting to respect everyone's busyness here today, I even wrote them down on the back for you, right? So, thank you, Joel? No? Thank you. All right, right? 9 times in the Gospel of Mark. This wasn't just one occasion. But Jesus taught it. He modeled it. He expected others to live by it as he was developing his disciples and his leaders within the church. He wanted them to understand the importance of not living a hurried life, of being able to slow down in the midst of everything that goes on. And so why would Jesus do that? Why did Jesus need to slow down? I mean, he is the Son of God, right? Clearly he could get things done. Actually, at the very end of the Gospel of John, John tells us that everything that Jesus did, all the miracles he performed, couldn't even be included in what we have in the Bible. John actually says you couldn't even write it down in all the books because there was so much that Jesus accomplished. But Jesus never lived a hurried life, and he understood the importance because of the value he places on, wait for it, relationships. Relationships with others, and ultimately relationships with God. Do you see when Jesus would be approached by other people? It's actually interesting. You notice Jesus' ministry, the majority of his teachings, the majority of his miracles came out of interruptions. That Jesus was on his way to do something else or to say something else, and someone interrupts him, someone tugs on his coat, someone brings little children to him. Just different things over and over and over again. And time again, when those moments are described, it's also described not just simply the activity that Jesus did, but the attitude he carried, and that was one of compassion. Jesus actually got annoyed and upset at people when they didn't allow interruptions to come. Because Jesus understood the value of being fully present with people, that no matter how busy we may be, that we engage in those people around us. Because we can accomplish so many things. But is it tearing down the relationships that are most important? You see, living a hurried life, I believe, leads to a life of regret, where we fail to engage in those people in our life that are most important. And so Jesus was modeling this for his disciples. Jesus understood the importance of slowing down, of not being hurried, and so that when he was interrupted, he took the time to be with them. It's a lesson I learned in Malawi over and over and over again. You know, in Canada, we often place priority on activity, on getting things done. And oftentimes, we will kind of just neglect relationship. In Malawi, it's the opposite. You see, they're rich on time. Poor in resources, but rich in time. We seem to be the opposite. We're rich in resources and poor on time. In Malawi, if I was going to do something else and someone showed up at my house, the person I was supposed to meet or the activity I was supposed to do could wait because they would live with the expectation that I would minister and talk to the person that was right there before me. And so for all of us kind of type A individuals, I'm not really a type A individual, right? I learned to make appointments with people either before lunch or after lunch, which kind of seems crazy. It's like, well, as long as you get here before lunch, we can hang out and do this, right? Malawi taught that to me. Jesus models it for us. And so an unhurried life allows us to go deeper in relationships. The second reason that Jesus models it is that an unhurried life allows us to go deeper with God. Notice that Jesus would step aside in prayer. He would talk to his Father. If you watch it, if you go and look at these passages, the times that Jesus would step away and be quiet were always right before typically significant moments in Jesus' ministry. When he was about to call his disciples, when he was dealing with difficult emotions, when he was about to go to the cross, what did he do? He didn't make his life busy. He didn't say, I got to go to this town and this town. No, he withdrew and got quiet to be with God the Father. You see, too often we think that busyness equals faithfulness. That the busier we become, the more pleasing it is to God. That if I get more busy, if I get more involved in serving others and doing other things, that then God will be pleased with that. But that's simply not the case. If you read through the Bible, if you probably experience in your own life, the times that God often speaks into our lives is not in the midst of busyness, but it's often in the gentle whisper. Psalm 46 says, be still, and know that I am God. Be still. Stop being so active. There's a great passage on this when Jesus offers us this word. I didn't get in the bulletin, but Matthew 11:28. And I'm going to read it from the Message, a different translation. This is Jesus speaking, and just allow this to resonate in your minds. He says, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Love that line. Like, underline that line. Jesus says, come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Jesus says, come to me. Allow me to be a part of the rhythm of life. You're going to accomplish many things, but don't forget the most important thing is experiencing God in your life. You know, we all say we want patience. Like, who doesn't want patience? But it's like, quickly, come on, develop it in me quickly, Lord, right? You can feed 5,000 people with a boy's lunch. Surely you can make me more patient, right? Like, love, joy, gentleness. None of those happen quickly. They take time to develop in us. And so Jesus models for us the importance of an unhurried life so that we can experience this abundant life, this life with others, this life ultimately with God. And so what does it start to look like? Let me just offer you two practices in my life. The first one is what I would describe as setting priorities. You see, Jesus had priorities. Do you notice that he said no to his disciples about staying in the town longer? Not because it wasn't a good idea, but because it wasn't the best idea. There were other things Jesus needed to do. He needed to go to other towns. He needed to go to other places. And so oftentimes Jesus would say no. And it's okay to say no. As a follower of Jesus, it's okay to say no. But oftentimes it's easier to say no and to say yes when we understand what are the priorities in life. And so I'm more of a visual learner. And so imagine this is your life. This is the full capacity of your life. That everything you want to do can only be accomplished in here. And so if you're like me, there are certain things that are more important than others, right? Like for me, faith is more important. So that goes in there. My relationship with God is the most important. Family is important. So that goes in there. Maybe pool balls in a glass vase was not the best idea. Sorry, Rebecca. Health is a priority. And you start to understand what are my priorities in life, and you just keep coming back to that and starting to fill it up. You notice not everything can be a priority, right? Because not everything can then fit in. But then there's other things in life that are maybe important, but maybe not just as important. And so we start to put those things in. That can be vacations, that can be time away, whatever it may be, right? And so we're getting there. We're not wanting to pack the whole thing in. But then there's other things that come into life, the small things. And I would call those like interruptions, or those small moments in life that you think are insignificant but actually do become significant. We need space for them as well. And so we drop those things in, and we keep filling it up with different things. You see, the point of this is that if you start with the small things, the big things will never get in there. And I think sometimes that's what we do, is we don't prioritize what is important and significant to us. And for Jesus, there were certain things that took priority. And so that became a measure for him to guide his ministry. And you're probably wondering why the cup of coffee? Well, for me, a priority is everything's always better with coffee. But what are yours? What are your priorities? In order to live an unhurried life, you have to understand, what are the things I'm going to say yes to? What are the things I'm going to say no to? And then the final thing is this. Begin the practice, the good habit of slowing down. Of slowing down in your relationship with God and in your relationship with life. Let me just talk about two simple practices when it comes to my relationship with God. When it comes to prayer, sit in silence before God. Trust me, it's hard. Like a couple of minutes, just try a couple of minutes to sit there and to bring no agenda, to bring no laundry list of things. And you'll start to see your mind, well, my mind anyway, starts to whirl and whirl and whirl and whirl, and just keep setting them aside, setting them aside, setting them aside. And just allow God to speak into your life. The second one is when you read the Bible, don't look at it as like a buffet that you have to consume in one sitting, right? But don't look at it as I have to read as much as I possibly can. I have to read my Bible in a whole year, or I have to read a chapter every day, and I'm going to consume and consume and consume. What if you just read a verse? What if you just read a couple words? And you did it in a way that you said, God, what do you want to say to me? And then you move on. Maybe you just stay with the same verse for a week or a month, right? The goal of following Jesus is not how much you've read or memorized. It's have you experienced God in the midst of it. And then practice slowing in life. Like, you may still accomplish the same amount of things, but what if you just start to change your perspective? What if your goal wasn't to see if you could rip out in front of the person driving in the lane and cut across in front of them to make the exit one car in advance, right? Or what if you went to the grocery store, you didn't look at which line was going to be the quickest, and then you jump in a line, and then you get annoyed because the person in the other line made it through before you? Right? What if you just allowed the space to live an unhurried life? Or my favorite, as I was preparing this message this week, I went to the movies with Masika on Friday night. And you know, the gentleman thing, the kind thing to do is when you go to open a door, you don't just like open the door and kind of step yourself through, right? You open the door and you let a few people in, right? But the question I always ask myself is, how long do I hold the stinking door open? I'm at the movies. There's like a couple hundred people coming through. And I swear to you, I literally was holding the door and I thought, let them all come in. Let them all come in. And I saw people in the parking lot parking their cars. I'm like, right, let them all come in, let them all come in. And I looked, and you know what made my day was Masika was holding the other door as they all walked in. Right, I still saw the movie. I still got my treats. And I experienced more of God in my life. And one of the biggest changes I'm making in my life is eradicating the phrase, I'm so busy. Just get rid of it. Why say it? It's as if people come to me and say, I know you must be so busy. Listen, I know how that goes. You don't think I'm so busy because you're still going to ask me what you want from me, right? Like you're still going to get to that point. But not to play into that. And if it is actually true, then to stop and ask myself the question, why am I so busy that I cannot be fully present with you? What needs to change? Psalm 46:10 says, be still, and know that I am God. The goal of us as a church is not to make your life busier. It's not to make your life busier, but to establish ways that you can experience the presence of God. And so we're gonna do that here this morning. I'm going to invite some of the musicians to come up, and they're going to play a song that we're going to sing in a moment called Be Still. But I don't know your life. I don't know how busy you are. Maybe there are certain things that you need to cut away. Maybe there's certain things that you need to prioritize. But don't wait on me. Let God speak into your place here. And so I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes.